Okay, today we'll be showing how to take down just to clean an Iver Johnson Trailsman. There's a lot of videos about a lot of different guns, but hadn't been able to find one on the Iver Johnson. Different people say it's like a Colt, but it's not really like a Colt. There's some things that are a little different, and so I wanted to make a video to show this. There's a guy, his name is Ron Beardman, or Bearden, that has printed out the stuff, or where you can print it on the internet, off the internet, but there's nobody out there that has gotten a video, so I was going to go ahead and do that to go ahead and get that where it's so you can watch it, just to be able to work on the gun. I might call it by the wrong names and stuff like that. I'm not really sure on a lot of these hammer struts and all this kind of stuff, but we'll kind of see what we can do. First of all, it has its own. This is the early model of this gun. Some of the later models you had to use a punch as a takedown pin. It had just a hole here. You use the punch to use as a takedown pin in there. This one has its own takedown pin. So what you do is, first of all, I have a snap cap in here, so we'll take that out, put that to the side. We'll make sure the gun is clear, the magazine is empty. And so first of all, what we'll do is use this takedown pin that comes with this gun. So you open it up as far as it will break, where it holds open. Then I'll push just a little farther, and you'll feel it hit a sweet spot in there, to where it catches and it releases the spring tension on it. See how that's kind of released now? It's got that spring held inside there. All right, so what we're going to do, all right, now that that's done, all right, is the fun part. This strut in the back of here is very, very tight. That's kind of one of the, I guess you call it, flaws of this gun. It makes it very hard to take down to clean. Especially the first time, I'll show you when we get inside of it what you need to do to kind of make it a little easier to get back together. The first time taking it apart, especially if it hadn't been taken apart in a long time, it's pretty hard on you, kind of hurts your fingers. But what you got to do is take this, put your fingers right here in this area and push down really, really hard. What we'll do is you have to push down like harder than you think you'll ever have to push down on it. And what it's going to do is pop that hammer spring loose in the back. And what I'll do a lot of times is push as hard as I can, and take something, and we're going to kind of work it in there. This is not very much fun, especially if you've done this a couple of times. It kind of gets bad on your fingers, but we'll get it eventually. Kind of hard on your thumbs and fingers. Need to be muscle man to get this open. All right, let's see if we can get it done here. Don't really want to use anything that's going to skin up the gun. You want to just take a screwdriver and put it down in there and pry out on it, but that's not going to be the best thing to do. It's kind of hard to get your fingers in there to get a hold of it, though. Let's see. Once it springs loose, you'll know it. Come on. I guess you can see I'm putting a pretty good bit of pressure on it, but it doesn't really help a whole lot. It doesn't seem to, until it gets where it wants to go. You're fighting two different springs in there and a little lever, and until it gets right in the right spot, you're not gonna get it off. And that is why the newer guns are so easy to take apart, is because these older guns like this make it just about impossible to clean. And you see why. I mean, I've already done this twice today, and it's still just about impossible to get that thing to let loose. I don't know, it might whip me this time though. Come on. All right, that's loose. This has got to fight up against there. Come on. We'll take that grip screw out in a minute, but I didn't want to bust the grips trying to do this. All right. Come on. Let me see if I can push with this. Down harder there. There it is. Man, see how hard that is? All right, that right there is the problem. But I'll show you, all right, what the solution to, actually, that is easier than it would be even from original. What I did, all right, you see this little squared bottom groove right here, that drops down in and holds on to this pin right here. And that's the problem, it won't let go. And so what you're doing is you're fighting a couple of different springs to get this to let go. And that's what ends up being the problem on it. So what happens is you need to take your little small file, even though I don't really like doing that to a new gun, but take that and see that shiny spot? Ease that off just a little bit, kind of round that corner, just a little bit right in there. And then also I'll put just a little bit of grease when we go to put it back together, so that what it is, that pin, whenever you push it in there, it needs to drop over and hold. It holds down here at the bottom, so you're not really, by easing this off, you're not really hurting the gun at all. It holds down in that groove. What you're doing is you're allowing that little pin to drop over in there without hanging up. And it makes it so much easier when it goes to put back together. But anyway, so we'll when I'll show you what we're talking about when we do that in a minute. All right, so now that we have all this it's let go now, then we can just take the actual slide. Make sure this is still, either it has your pin still stuck in there like that if you don't have the takedown pin, but mine does. So it's still contained in there. All right, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a spring that's right up in there. That's what you're fighting against. That's the actual slide spring. Of course, I'm not gonna call it the right name. I don't know what to call it. There's the firing pin, and it's got a spring in there. And then there's the extractor is right here, and it is itself a spring. It's a spring-loaded little piece of thin metal that goes down through the middle of here. And what I had to do on this gun is I had to replace the firing pin. And so what I did is, in order to get that firing pin out of there, you have to take a little small punch, flip it over, and see the little hole here? You'll be driving this pin that's right here, it's a little fat pin. You drive that out, and it's not spring loaded or anything, it just comes out. And actually it has little grooves that are actually on the extractor and on the firing pin that allow that to, and that's what it retains those, it holds those in there. So that they'll, and then of course the firing pin has a little small spring, not really very strong spring, but it's back behind the firing pin. But anyway, so right now this little spring right here has got this little, it's a spring loaded little clip, has got that held under tension and it's held back. And when we go to, in a few minutes, when I go to put the slide back on there, I'll, the last thing you do, I'll be pushing down on this right in here. I push down, and it allows that pressure off that spring, and that's what gives you spring against your actual recoil of the gun. But anyway, so this is basically broken down to the point where you can clean it now. The guy, the Ron Bairden guy, on this information, he shows the actual breakdown of the internal workings of the gun. From what I can tell and from what I've read, it is a booger to work with, and it's not very much fun. And so I am not going to really go into that. This is mostly just to show the cleaning and maintenance on the gun. All right, so first of all, what we have to do, we're gonna go back together with it now. So that's you clean all this. What I did, sprayed it all with some oil, and then with my air compressor, kind of got most of the oil back out. I greased up any of the if you see shiny areas on there, put a little grease on those. That means any kind of shiny areas means that that's where it's going to want to wear. Put a little grease on those just to help in the where it doesn't wear out your gun quite so fast. Maybe a little on each side of the slide here, and then so the slide goes back on. Just put the slide back on just like a regular. It goes back on there. All right. So now the hard part. What we want to do is we want to take. I always take a little bit of grease. We'll take a little bit of this gun grease, just a little bit, and we put it right on that little shiny spot there. All right, see that's on that shiny spot, and what that's going to help do. All right, I'll show you. We need to put this there's a spring right here. It's see the little spring? That little spring, little flat spring right there, has to sit in a groove that's right just inside, just above that little pin. All right, if you have let me take the grip. Don't take the grip the grip off the other side. There is a spring underneath it. You can take it off, just be ready for the spring to come out. But on the left-hand side, you can, and you kind of want to, because see the little hole right there? If you can see that spring, turn that corner in that hole, you know that spring is in that little cutout for it. That's what it's made for. All right, so what we have, all right, you see this is the hammer, and that's the hammer strut. All right, so what we want to do, with the hammer all the way down, that strut sits down here low. With the hammer all the way up, that strut sits higher. All right, so what we want to do is we want to pull the trigger and have that hammer sit as far up as it possibly can. See how that hammer strut is way up there now. All right, what that does is when we go to feed that in there like that, this is going to sit in there like that. That hammer strut has to sit down in there, and then it also has to, that tension of that flat spring pushes here, and it has to latch in there. And that's what makes it all hard to get back together. All right, so we want to take as much of that hammer strength off as we can. So we put it as far up in there, the hammer as far up in there as we can. All right, then we go get this lined up in there, get that hammer strut to hit that hole. All right, make sure our spring is in the right place on here. All right, now what you can do, you can take a rubber mallet or something and hit that, but it should clip right back in there if you have that off of there. If you have that, the piece we took with a file and kind of cut that off, it should drop on back in there. See, that's dropped back in there now, and that should be good. All right, so now what we do is we test that out. This has dropped my spring back down. All right, sometimes, let's hold it back. Sometimes this little takedown pin, you'll have to either pull that pin out if you have the other kind, or sometimes this won't let go. And so you have to, that's what I was talking about earlier. You just go up in here as far as you can, and you can see that, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but you can see there's a little flat spring in there, and all you do is just kind of push that down underneath that spring, and it'll let loose of it. And so then you have your gun ready to go. All right, so now what we want to do is just kind of do some general test on it to make sure everything's going to work right. You saw that the actual gun holds open, shuts like it should, safety works, and the magazine releases the magazine. So everything seems to be working right on it. We'll put a snap cap in there. We go ahead and put the grip screw back on here like this. Gotta get my big fingers out of the way. All right, put the grip screw back on there, not too tight. Want to break these old original grips. All right, got my snap cap in there. All right, so we feed a snap cap in there, then we try it. The snap cap comes out, locks open, everything should be ready to go. Let me do that one more time so we don't leave it with the spring, the hammer spring. The hammer spring left. So, all right, that's it. It is should be taken down, cleaned, and we did that little modification that makes it maybe a little bit easier to put back together. Not a very easy gun to clean. It is a neat little gun, but it's just a booger to clean sometimes. And from what I can tell, any of the internal workings are just about as bad to work on. So we're going to kind of leave that alone. I cleaned those as good as I could, and it probably would eventually need a deep cleaning, but that may be for another day. All right.